Kızım ev geliyor. Ay! Ahmet ev geliyor, ev geliyor, ev geliyor. Allah'ım ev. Allah! Allah! Allah yardım et. Allah!
Grandina tutto, nebbia d'acqua, non si capisce niente.
Guardate ragazzi, guardate un po', ragazzi, sono una vita.
Severe storms have struck Italy, Emilia-Romagna region, alleged torrential rain, hail and powerful winds that caused flash flood and power outage and widespread disruption. The violent weather in the late Monday drenched cities including Bologna, Modena, Ravenna and Forlì, and leaving several communities underwater within an hour. Residents described scenes of chaos, and the streets turned into rivers and vehicles were swept away. The water rose so quickly that we barely had time to measure our car, said Luca Bianchi, a shop owner in central Bologna. It was like a city was drowned. Firefighters carried out more than 800 emergency inverters overnight, rescue motorists and pumped water from flooded homes. In Ravenna, authorities ordered evacuation after local rivers overflowed. Wide section of the A14 motorway were temporarily closed due to landslides and debris. Meteorologists say the storm were triggered and the sharp drop in air pressure as warm, humid air from the Adriatic collided with a cold front descended from the northern Europe, a risk from intense thunderstorm. This is a classic Mediterranean instability event, explained Dr. Elisa Conte from Italy's National Weather Service. His atmosphere were loaded in energy, and when it broke, a rainfall was explosive. A severe hailstorm swept across the northern Italy, battered cities from Milan to Bologna, with ice stones the size of a tennis ball and leaving a trail of destruction across the region. The storm, which broke out late on Wednesday evening, turned streets into rivers and the ice and causing chaos in that meteorologists describe it as one of the most severe hailstorms in the Italy recent history. Residents of Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna described scenes of panic and thunder rumble overhead and a huge hailstorm pounded roofed cars and crops. It felt like the sky was fallen, said Franessa Rossi, a resident of Parma. The noise was different. We thought the window would explode. Local authorities reported hundreds of emergency calls. Firefighters worked through the night and rescue motorists to clear fallen trees. In Bergamo, entire neighborhoods were left without power, and strong winds and ice built up damaged power lines.
Assassini! Delinquenti sono! Delinquenti sono! Sono dei delinquenti! A muoversi questo tempo! Delinquenti!
Several roads were closed and flash floods combined with a thick layer of hail turned into highway into slippery, impossible surface. The damage to agriculture is catastrophic. Vineyard in Veneto and orange in Modena have suffered total losers, with the farmers estimated damage at over 200 million euros. Years to work destroyed in 20 minutes, said winemaker Matteo Galli. We have never seen such large hailstones. They punched holes in a metal roof. Meteorologists from Italy's National Meteorological Agency explained that the intense collision of most Mediterranean air and cold northern winds created a supercell, a rotating thunderstorm capable of producing giant hailstorm and a sudden gust of winds. The temperature dropped by more than 10 Celsius in less than an hour, shocking residents who were enjoying a midsummer events. Hospitals in several provinces treated dozens of people took cuts of berries from the broken glass and ice. Fortunately, no deaths were reported, although local official warning to such extreme weather events are becoming more common. Italy is becoming increasingly vulnerable to violent weather, say climatologist Dr. Luca Bianchi. Rising sea temperatures in the Mediterranean are contributing to stronger and faster developing storms. At dawn, residents took to streets and find their streets covered in ice, cars damaged, windows broken and crews destroyed it. For many Italians, it was a stark reminder of the growing instability of nature and warning for the storm to come. Powerful hailstorm swept across Rome on a Monday evening, transforming in the eternal city into surreal winter scene in the middle of autumn. The violent burst of the weather struck without warning, pelting the capital with the ice stones at the size of a marble 8 in some era's golf ball. Within a minute, streets, pieces and parked cars were buried under the thick layer of ice, forcing traffic to stand still and overwhelming the city drainage systems. It was like a blizzard, said local resident Marco De Santis, who was driving near Pisa Veneto where the storm hit. The visibility dropped to zero. People were hooking to pull it over, afraid the white shift would shatter. Emergency service received hundreds of calls across Rome and nearby towns. Firefighters rushed to clear blocked roads, flooded underpasses, and fallen roof bridges. Public transport was temporarily suspended in several districts, where video shared online showed buses tragically through the rivers and a hail of water flowing through the metro entries. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm was part of the weather system moving across central city Italy, where warm Mediterranean air collided vitally with the cold front from the northern Europe. It was an explosive mix, said meteorologist Luca Bianchi. The sudden temperature drop triggered intense convection, prompting hail and unusual size of this time of year. Shops and restaurants interest even accompanied for a safer flood with outdoor treacherous terraces and markets still destroyed. Several hospitals reported minor injuries, mostly from the people slipping or brain stuck in fallen debris. It lasted barely 20 minutes, said cafe owner Emilia-Romagna, but the damages caused local-like hurricane airspace. The storm aftermath left Rome's historic landmarks coated in ice and a rare haunting sights. Tourists shaped photos to Colosseum and Spanish steps, gilding the under street slides, and the city crews walked through the night to clear debris and restore normal traffic. Experts warn that extreme weather like this could become more frequent. Mediterranean storms are intensified due to climate change, said climatologist Dr. Lorenzo Conte. Rome may see more violent hail and flash flood in the recent heat. As a calmer toured by morning, Romans awoke the melted hail and the city shaking the yet another reminder to nature growing unpredictability.
Sta sotto. Che cazzo se ne cosa fa? Eh sì.
A violent hailstorm has battered parts of Sicily, transformed sun-shocked towns into city landscape and caused widespread disruption across the island. The powerful storm struck suddenly on a Tuesday afternoon, hitting Palermo, Catania and several inland communities with the torrents of rain and a hailstorm as large as a walnut. Within a minute, roads turned white, cars were dented with the flash floods swept through the narrow streets. It looked like a storm in August, said Maria Russa, a shop owner in Catalnesia. The hail came down so fast and hard it broke out shot window and filtered the shop floor with water. Emergency crews were destroyed across Sicily as a local authority received hundreds of distress calls. Firefighters worked late into the night to rescue drivers trapped in the submerged vehicles and clearing hail pocket roads. In Palermo, parts of the Sicily Historic Center were blanketed in ice to 15 centimeters deep, forcing police to close several main roads and tunnels. Meteorologists say the storm was triggered by intense grayish air masses, warm humid to rise from the Mediterranean cauldron with a cold front descended from the northern Europe. The instability created perfect conditions to the supercell formation, explained meteorologist Elena Caruso. The hailstone size of the speed formation are extraordinary for this season. Several flights to Catania, Fortenerosa Airport were delayed due to low visibility and lighting activity, while local trains between Palermo and Messina were suspended after debris covered the track. Farmers across the central Sicily have reported severe crop damage, particularly to vineyard and citrus groves. They destroyed nearly half of the harvest, said vineyard owner Salvatore Giotto. In 13 years, I never seen hail like this. Video shared on social media showed rivers and white hail racing through the streets in Palermo, while the residents used shovels to clear pathway in the after of snowstorm. Power outages were reported in the multiple municipalities, and several coastal towns experienced shocked by intense flooding. Experts warn that such extreme events are becoming increasingly common. Mediterranean regions like Sicily are highest vulnerable in the climate experts, said climatologist Dr. Paolo Leone.
Esta es la estación de la Ravenna.
Rome was hit by unexpected and several hailstones that covered historic capital with a layer of ice, creating several scenes to resemble weather rather than early autumn. The sudden storm swept through the city on Tuesday afternoon, disrupted traffic, flooding subway station and forcing prediction to seek shelter. Local authority reported that hailstones, some the size of a golf ball, fell in nearly 20 minutes, covering squares, roads and even areas around the Coliseum. Emergency crew were disrupted to clear broken drains after torrential rain mixing with the ice caused flash flooding in several low-lying areas. Public transport was severely affected, with the several metro lines temporarily suspended due to water ingress. Drivers described terrified moments where the visibility dropped to almost zero. It was like a sky was falling, and the hail bending to so loudly, and the roof in the car was where could hit each other, said the city resident Marco Rossi. Businesses in the city center rushed to protect their shop windows, while cafes and restaurants along the Via del Corso lost their outdoor sitting areas, which were destroyed with the hail. Social media quickly filled with the images of Rome cobbled streets turned into rivers and ice caused astonishment around the world. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused of the sudden collision toward Mediterranean air with a cold front and swept through the central Italy, an increasingly common pattern associated with the climate instability. Experts warned that such intense hailstorms are becoming more frequent in southern Europe. Despite the chaos, no serious injuries were reported, although dozens of people were treated in hospital to minor cuts on businesses. The mayor of Rome urged residents to remain cautious, emphasizing the city's vulnerability to extreme weather events. For many Romans, the storm was stark reminder for the power of nature and the need to better preparedness in the era-changing climate realities. The Italian capital was through the internal turmoil after sudden and violent hailstorm hit the Rome, covering the streets with the ice, damaged vehicles and living residents stranded. The storm, which arrived without warning, was declared a meteorologist is one of the most intense hail events the city has in the decades. Within minutes, the sky darkened over the central Rome before unleashing the barrage of hailstorms, some the size of a golf ball. The streets around the Colosseum, Pisa, Venice and Trastevere was transformed into rivers of ice. Video shared on social media showed scooters and cars are skidding out of control while passengers rolled their shoulders in subway station. It sounded like the gunshot of roofs, said residents. Chiara Lombardi was a car white plate was shattered. In 15 minutes everything was destroyed. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls or rescue drivers trapped in the flooded overpasses and removing fallen branches. At least 25 people were injured, mainly is broken glass and debris. Rome, a city more accustomed to the golden sun, said that the ice storm was hit by an unusual hailstorm that covered its streets and the thick layer of ice. The sudden downpour, which lasted then an hour, brought daily life to the sudden health, forced residents and tourists to try to understand the extent of the damage. Meteorologists' incidents confirmed the hailstorm was caused by the collisions of warm Mediterranean air masses with a sharp cold front from the northern Europe. Strong updrafts formed hailstorm the size of a golf ball, which damaged roofs, smashed shop windows, and left cars covered in damp. It caused chaos and transformation. Several metro stations were forced to close due to flooding and major roads turned into rivers and a melted slush. Emergency service reported rescued dozens of people trapped in their cars, while firefighters rushed to clear a fallen bridge and the restore blocked drainage system. In 30 years of service, I have never seen a Rome suffer so much from ice, said a fire brigade representative. Hospitals across the capital treated dozens of people who were injured after slipper of ice sidewalks. Tourists visited landmarks such as Pisa, Venice and Spanish Steps, described it surreal scene. We thought it was snowing, but the hail became so heavy that it hurt, recalled Anna, a tourist from Germany. Farmers in Lazio Local farmers in the Lazio region reported severe damage on a vineyard and olive grove during accompanied harvest season. Social media flooded with the shocking footage and hail pelting on around Colosseum and Treaty Foundation with the thunder echoing across the sky. Many Romans tragically to hide their astonishment. It's like the end of the world, said Maria, a shop owner in the Trastevere district. The street turned completely white in an instant. I've never seen anything like that. Experts warn that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent as the climate patterns in southern Europe shift. We are witnessing the Mediterranean region transformed into a source of violent storm, stated climatologist Emilia-Romagna. As snow removal crews cleared the ice debris, Rome felt that the aftermath of extreme weather damage and stark reminder of the event of eternal city is not immune to natural fury.
No, vabbè.
Amo, vai di là, chiudi.
A severe storm hit Sicily, Italy, caused heavy rain, strong winds and widespread flooding in several cities including Palermo and Catania. The extreme weather events, which struck without warning, turned streets into rivers, disrupted transportation and left thousands of residents without electricity and with damaged property. Local authority issued several weather warnings on the island who received rainfall significantly above the seasonal average. Videos show a dramatic scene where, posted on social media, cars submerged into water, people waist deep water in the floodwaters, and emergency service trying to reach stranded cities. Meteorologists report that the storm deployed rapidly over the Mediterranean Sea under the influence of low pressure system combined into high sea surface temperature, and a phenomenon that is becoming increasingly common due to climate change.
Yo creo que nunca he visto una cosa así, güey.
Meanwhile, firefighters from all over Italy were sent to reinforce refuse force. Social media is flooded with the images and dramatic rescue operations. Children begin lifted from rooftops, elderly people begin to carry out throughout the waist-deep water, and pain being saved from the daunting. The hashtag Sicilia Scotta Aqua were become popular throughout the country. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed solidarity with the region, promised no community will be left without the help. We will rebuild our support every affected family. Experts warn that the Mediterranean region is becoming increasingly vulnerable to such storm. In the recent report by European Environmental Agency, Sicily was identified as a climate hotspot facing rising sea levels, heat waves and now extreme rainfall. As the sky begins to clear, attention turned to recover. Damage assessment, no ongoing to questions are being raised about the urban planning, drainage system and early warning protocols. But for many Sicilians, healing will take no longer. As Emilia-Romagna, whose home was destroyed, it said with the tears here years. We survived but not lost everything. Now we have started all over again. In the heart of the Mediterranean, the Italian island of Sicily has long been seasonally with a sun of the tempting coastline and seductive blend of the history and culture. However, this idyllic landscape is recently has been transformed in a dramatic scene of nature fury. A formidable storm marked by resounding rain and fierce winds and lashed Sicily, unveiling the vulnerable of even the most picturesque square of the region with the firms of weather. The storm onslaught was a shift with the meteorologists barely able to predict and intensify before the unleashed food and made the apron of fury. Winning hours, streets and town crisis across the Sicily were inundated, transformed urban center into unwelcoming, water-loaded mazes. The rain, increasing unforgiving, pointed the green portrait of the region undesigned by the elements. In Palermo, the Sicilian capital, scenes and the chaos unfolded. As streets and usually burst with the life and aroma of Sicily, crash while deserted save from ascensional vehicles struggling against the rising water. The iconic Massimo attachment of Sicily agriculture dangerous stood with the silence within to unfolding calamity. A powerful storm hit Sicily, Italy, causing severe weather conditions that resulted in widespread destruction across the island. The storm, characterized by heavy rain, gale force winds, led to widespread flooding, power outage and extensive damage to infrastructure. Local authorities report that the crises of Catania and Palermo have been hit by hardest heat. In Catania, streets turned into rivers. and water level rose in 3 during years. The historic city center, which usually turned to tourists, is now ill-equipped. Emergency service tried to cope with the field. Video shared on social media showed cars submerged and residents walking throughout the waist-deep water. The meteorological service has recorded widespread up to 100 km/h, which further agriculture to situation. Trees have been uprooted, roofs have been ripped off buildings, and debris is scattered to roadway, making the travel dangerous. The regional government has issued a red alert, urging residents to stay at home and avoid unnecessary travel. In Palermo, the storm led to similar extent to chaos. In local airport was temporarily closed due to flooding of runway, leading to flight cancellation and delays.
Sono le macchine sotto acqua, ragazzi. Questa è via Sant'Alessio.
Guarda che roba questo.
Guardate questo signore.
Sicily was hit a severe storm that swept across the island overnight, causing torrential rain, storms, winds, and widespread flooding. Palermo, Catania, and several smaller towns were worst affected, with the streets turned into raging rivers, and entire neighborhoods were left without power. Residents reported panic as the water flooded historic city center. It was terrible. In a matter of minutes, the water rose above the car's doors. We had to abandon the vehicles, said Salvatore Russo, the driver from Palermo. Emergency service carried out dozens of rescue operations, including rescuers, families trapped in their homes, and motorists stuck in the underpasses. Authority temporarily closed schools and government offices in several municipalities as prediction. The Sicily Civil Protection Agency declared a highest level of water alert. At least one hospital of Catania reported flooding in the lower floors, forcing staff and relocate pedant. The storm also dealt a serious blow to agriculture, damaging olive groves, citrus, orange, and vineyards, while left to blockburn the island economy. Farmers estimated to damage of millions of euros, further complicating the situation in a region that already struggled with the drought to binging of a year. Flights to and from Palermo to Catania airports were delayed and cancelled, and ferry service between Sicily and mainland Italy was suspended to several hours due to rush seas. Meteorologists are linking this storm to a powerful Mediterranean cyclone, sometimes called the Medicon, from the form to the warm seawater full intense weather system. Experts warn that the climate change is making such event more frequent and destructive. The president of the Sicily region promised rapid assistance to the affected communities, stretching the urgent need to strategically flood protection. This storm has once again demonstrated the vulnerability our island in us. We must do decisively to protect life and livelihood, he said.
Cosa incredibile.
Italy. This week violent hailstorm struck parts of the northern and central Italy and lashed golf ball-sized ice and town of transformed roads, vineyards, and city squares into frozen rivers. Described by meteorological as one of the most intense storms in the recent years, the disaster caused widespread damage to homes, vehicles, and agriculture, leaving residents stranded, it is said, in fury. The hardest hit region were Lombardy, Emilia-Romagna, and Tuscany. In Bologna, hail shattered windows and damaged roofs. In Milan, a wide streets of ice-covered streets completely paralyzing traffic. Sudden flooding added the chaos, flooding emergency service with hundreds of rescue requests. Carlo Benedetti, a resident of Modena, said it was terrified when in minutes the sky turned pitch black and the thousand near rooms of ice were crashing down. The hailstorms with such force they shattered titles and dented cars' bodies on the streets. According to meteorological from the Italy Civil Protection Department, the storm was triggered by the violent collision between warm air from the Mediterranean and a cold front moving from the Central Europe. offering the lifeline in these terrifying times. Agriculture sector and the backbone of Sicily economy is not immune to the storm impact. Orange in the field and inundated posing to threat to groups of livelihood. Farmers already facing challenges in recent years are now too left to continue with the aftermath of this natural disaster. As the storm intensifies, rescue operations are underway to ensure the safety of residents trapped in the rising water. Emergency service blocked by the local volunteers to navigate in treacherous conditions to reach those in need. Evacuations are being carried out systemically, proportions to most vulnerable members of the community. Italy's government, in collaboration with the regional authority, is mobilizing rescue to address the crisis. Prime Minister Matteo Renzi has declared a state of emergency in Sicily, unlocking additional funds to rescue and in recovery efforts. The Italian Red Cross and other humanitarian organizations are also coordinated relief operations to provide essential supplies and support to affected communities. While the storm continued to batter Sicily, the resilience and solidarity in the people shine through. Neighbors are leading to helping hand and communities are coming together to face and change in poison to natural disaster. The Sicilian city of Palermo is trying to recover after the violent storm that caused chaos throughout the region, bringing record rainfall, destructive winds and widespread flooding. In a matter of hours, almost a month of worst of rainfall caused sweat for the overflow and the streets flood. Footage from the city shows cars floating like toys, buses stuck in the middle on the roads, and firing residents seek refuge in the rooftop. The water rose so quickly that we barely had time to escape, said Giovanni Russo, whose family was rescued to firefighters from the flooded apartment. At least 5 people were killed and dozens were injured. More than 200 residents were evacuated from their homes, and thousands were left without power due to damage in power lines caused by fallen trees and lightning strikes. The historic center of Palermo, known for the architecture and the live market, was ill emptied, businesses closed to tourists at the day hotels. Hospitals are overwhelmed, treating cases to hypothermia, injuries and shock. Emergency shelters have been set up in school and community halls to accommodate families who have lost their homes. The major called in a worst storm in history, and their request urged assistance to the native level. In addition to Palermo rural area, the Sicily were also affected. Vineyard, olive farms, and a citrus orange, which are vital to the island economy, were destroyed, rising concerns about the significant loss and agriculture. Transport link was paralyzed. Palermo airport suspended flights to several hours, and a ferry rail service was suspended due to flooding and landslides. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the collisions of warm Mediterranean waters with a cold front, increasingly common phenomenon linking to climate change. Italian Civil Protection Agency warning that Sicily is now one of the regions in Europe most vulnerable to extreme weather conditions.
Andavo a 100 all'ora per trovare la compagnia, yeah, 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 yeah. Andavo a 100 all'ora per cantare la serenata, bam, 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 bam.
The Italian island of Sicily is battling catastrophic flooded and unprecedented rain turned entire town into disaster zone. Meteorologists have described this storm as a once-of-the-century event, and official warning the full extent of the damage is not yet known. The streets of Palermo turned into rivers, cars were swept away by a building, and underground garages were flooded in a matter of minutes. In Catania, residents were forced in a wet chest deep through the metro in the city center, and hospital reported serious damage to emergency rooms. Messina, Sorrento, and rural mountain community were cut off by landslides. In less than a day, more than 215 millimeters of rain fell, almost as much in 4 months. Italy's Civil Protection Agency issued a red alert, urged residents to stay indoors. Helicopters and rescue boats worked around the clock to evacuate families trapped in the upper floor. At least 10 people were killed and more than injured and missing. I thought that it was end, said Salvador Vital, a 64-year-old farmer who lost the livestock while floods inundated his field. Chaos and disbelief swept through the Italian capital as a ferocious hailstorm tore across Rome, blanketing streets in ice, flooding tunnels and leaving residents trapped in their cars and homes. The storm, which struck suddenly in the late afternoon, turned into Eternal City, into the witness described it as a frozen battlefield. Meteorologists said the event was triggered by a clash between the warm Mediterranean air and rapidly advancing Arctic front, a combination that prodded towering thunderstorm and the severe hail. When in moments hailstorm the size of large coins plumped the city, shredded through windows and dented vehicles across entire neighborhoods. I've lived in Rome, and whole life I never seen anything like it, said 34-year-old taxi driver Marco De Santis. The storm unleashed torrents in the city water through the several districts, including Trastevere, San Giovanni, and Ossa, where drainage system was overwhelmed. Firefighters reported to more than 1,500 emergency calls, rescuing stranded motorists and pumped water from metro station and underground garage. Power cuts hit multiple areas, while traffic across A19 ring road ground to half an hour. Photos and videos shared online showed rivers of ice flowing through the incident, cobblestone streets and a half-building knee-deep around the famous landmark. The Trevi Foundation overflowed with a ruin of water, while parts of Via del Corso resembled glacier. Was left stranded after extraordinary hailstorm turned in the Eternal City into the local described the sudden winter in September. Streets across the capital, including area near the Colosseum and Pisa Venezia, were blanketed a thick layer of ice, disrupting traffic and caused widespread astonishment. The violent storm struck with a little warning, planted the city with a hailstorm the size of a walnut. When a minute's drain were overwhelmed, leaving the flash flood in low-lying districts, motorists were forced to abandon cars and ice storms swept through the several avalanches, while public buses struggled to navigate blocked roads. Emergency service reported dozens of calls to assistance. Firefighters were deployed to clear fallen branches and rescue drivers trapped flooded in underpasses. No fatalities were confirmed, but several minor injuries occurred as people slipped on the ice-coated pavement. One resident told local media, "I lived in Rome 40 years. I never seen hail like this. I felt that the city had been dropped into another season." Meteorologists explained that the year was triggered by a clash of warm Mediterranean air with a powerful cold front from the northern Europe, creating ideal conditions from the hail formations. The land were deepened on the Catfield destroyed it. power outage left more than 400,000 homes in the dark. Rail service were suspended and Palermo airport was severely disrupted. Businesses and county millets as losers, with the tourism, agriculture and fishing particularly hard hit. City's famous citrus groves, olive trees and vineyards were flooded, raising fears to flood and shortage. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni declared the flooding a national emergency, promising immediate funding to military support. "We stand with the city," she said. European Union official also pledged to assist with the barriers linking to the disaster and urgent need to action on climate change. Experts warn that climate change is intensifying on severity of Mediterranean storms, and warning seas are contributing to more intense rainfall. Dr. Rilan Rossi, a climatologist, said, "What we are seeing in Sicily, a venial future is urgent action to take no taking." As the water began to recede, thousands of people forced to plainfield two-story buildings, standing outside her destroyed homes in Palermo. Surveyor Rosa Ferraro said with the tears in her eyes, "The Sicilians are strong, but the storm was broken our heart." Residents found themselves stranded in their homes waiting for rescue teams to arrive. The heat of Italy, Rome and entire city forced in all shared challenges at the Colosseum, an enduring symbol of Rome history, stood the silent weather the raging storm as a rain and wind threatening to erode an incident forecast. Trees turned into rivers and historic positions became waterlogged that caused extensive damage of city infrastructure. Italian authorities renovated their evacuation response to time of crisis point of action. Emergency service working tirelessly to rescue those trapped in the rising floodwaters and restore essential service. Helicopters, however, over-submerged areas, airlifting residents to safety. The firefighters braved elements to reach those in need.
È arrivata la prima pioggia. Devo spendere pure luce alla piazzetta.
A powerful storm hit Sicily, plunging part of the Italian island into chaos as torrential rain, strong winds and flash floods swept through the gray skies, including Palermo, Catania and Messina. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm dumped more than 120 mm of rain in just a few hours, nearly a month's worth, flooding streets, collapsing roads and prompted dozens of evacuations. Emergency service responded more than 300 calls using helicopters to board the rescue trapped residents. In Palermo, dramatic footage showed cars flooding like toys and shops in the historic center of flooding. Emilia-Romagna, a 42-year-old local resident, said, "It was terrible. The water rushed into our house in a matter of minutes. The barrier had time to move the upper floor. Schools were closing in affected regions, and hundreds of people were left without power due to power outage." Authority also reported temporarily closed to Catania airport. The rail runway were flooded, caused delays and cancellations. Meteorologists explained the extreme weather conditions as a mitigant to rare Mediterranean hurricane formed by high sea temperature and unstable air masses. Sicily Civil Protection Chief Fabio Cruiser warning about the increasingly unstable Mediterranean climate. Econi, warning from climatologists who said that the sea surface temperature, now about 27 Celsius, are contributed to the formation of more tropical cyclones now at the Mediterranean. Local media including Roberto Lagola of Palermo and Etnico Tragico of Catania have requested emergency funds of support from the national government. Cleanup efforts are ongoing with more than 1,400 civil protection volunteers and firefighters involved in the cleanup debris and draining flooded areas. Environmental cartel groups such as Ligibird and Colson Italy in disputed infrastructure urged, especially in the southern cities prone on flooding. Experts from the University of the Palermo know that 16% of region drainage system and outdated or inundated from the today extreme weather conditions. As Italy begin in a powerful recovery, the message is clear. Climate disasters are no longer a distant possibility. They are not happening now with the devastation consequences.